Hi everyone, you're watching Book Bakht reviews. I'm Bakhtawar and I talk about books. I review books for the most part. And today we're discussing a book which I recently read. It was actually in one of my previous hauls. I'll link the video in the description. It's In Other Worlds, Other Wonders by Daniyal Mueenuddin. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Mueenuddin. Yeah. So this is a collection of interconnected short stories. They're basically with an overarching theme of the feudal system in rural Punjab. And it's interconnected in the sense that one of them is about the landowner's personal life. A couple relate to his servants, one relates to a workman, one relates to maybe a nephew of his. So they're interconnected in that way. I don't know if this interconnectedness was on purpose, because as far as I know, I think that they were published separately in different literary journals, or literary magazines rather. So I don't know if this was pre-planned. So right off the bat, what I really liked about this is that it's very believable, which makes sense because I think the author spent a great deal on a farm as a child, and I think he lives on a farm currently also, I'm not sure. So there's a lot of believability. You really, it's very authentic when he talks about all of these things. It's not. And also what I liked is that he effortlessly maneuvers around things which normally you would find difficult to accept, or you wouldn't think about them, they wouldn't occur to you. Also sort of features people that maybe we'd usually ignore in our daily lives, and we'd not really think that there's this whole story behind them. He gives life to these characters. A story, the first one actually in this collection that I really liked. One second, I'm going to put this down. So the first one that I really liked, Nawabuddin, it's called Nawabuddin Electrician. And it's strange that he picks someone who in our daily lives is so mundane. It's someone you come across every now and then, and you never stop to think about them. But he sort of attaches these strange and unfathomable qualities to this man. He makes him really charismatic and resourceful, and it's very interesting. And then this man ends up being hailed as a hero because he gets shot, I think, in the leg or something. So it's really amazing. He attaches these big meaningful ideas to places which are perhaps small or ignored by some of us, and he kind of really bridges the gap between classes, and you know, he evokes empathy from the reader. He also gives a really panoramic view of the characters. You know, like some characters you might end up sort of disliking in one story, but when he sort of features them as the protagonist in another story, they might even end up endearing. Now, while the focus predominantly is on the feudal sort of system and the feudal class, and obviously all the classes of people that sort of fall inside that, he's not particularly critical of the system. I don't think that he intends to be. I tend to think that in some ways this sort of neutrality is the mark of a good writer, because he's not using his considerable power over the reader to sort of influence him in any one direction. It's not black or white. Mueenuddin seems more interested in sort of the people that have fallen through the cracks, you know, people that sort of are outside the societal constructs of acceptance, or, you know, people that we don't think are, you know, really worthy of our attention. And he seems more interested in that grey area when he writes his stories. You know, like in the story that's titled Lily, it's about this girl who's really sort of caught up with bad company, and she both craves the crazy sort of lifestyle that she leads with a lot of partying. She both craves it and detests it. You know, she seeks to be free of it by marrying the Honorable Murad, who becomes her husband. But then again, she's drawn back into it, so it's kind of like a cat, you know, eating its tail. So it's also about sort of the situations that surround these characters that they're unable to escape from, even if they should want to. Which obviously applies to all of us in a way, doesn't it? We're all trying to escape from something. There are 8 stories in total in this sort of volume, so to speak. They're not all amazing, but I think a few of them are better than the others. But they're extremely readable, you know. Mueenuddin never needs to resort to crass language in order to explain crass things. I think his expression is so sophisticated that he never needs to sort of, you know, that was my parrot. So yeah, it's really sophisticated, his expression. The last story in the collection is what really struck a chord with me. It's called A Spoiled Man. It's about this really poor workman who lives in sort of this really dilapidated little caravan that he can move from place to place. He doesn't have a lot of possessions, and he's very lonely. He's sort of cut off from his family. But then he gets a job overlooking, I think, a part of the farm of the landlord of that area, the landowner of that area. And he starts getting these little luxuries in his life, you know. He gets goats, a couple of goats, he gets a plastic television, he gets this mentally challenged wife who cooks for him and cleans after him, and he thinks that this is, you know, this is the highest that life can go for a man of his position, and he's very happy. And you see him develop this sort of almost Icarus kind of confidence and hubris. Icarus is a character from Greek mythology. It's this guy who made wings out of wax, and then when he started flying, he got so overconfident. Hubris is actually, you know, a defining trait which brings down someone who's really hero-like and intelligent. Anyway, so he makes these wings in the myth, not in this story. He makes the wings out of wax, and he's flying, and he thinks he can do anything. So he ventures very close to the sun, and obviously the sun melts the wax, and he falls and dies. So the same thing almost happens to this man. You know, you see him almost sort of ascend, you know, to this imaginary kind of height, and then he loses almost everything. So yeah, but for some reason I found this to be one of the more profound stories in this volume. I don't even know if this is a volume. Is that what you call? It's just a collection, but I like the word volume. So yeah, give this a read, folks. You will not regret it. Yeah. I'll see you next time. If you like this sort of book-related content, please consider subscribing, and I'll see you next time.